Middlefield opened in the new hospital building in 1872. There is this great Masonic procession from the station at Dorridge for the grand opening of Middlefield. The great pageantry, the bishops of Worcester, Lichfield, Birmingham, etc., who were all very keen Freemasons, paraded. It was rather unusual, I believe. They were given special permissions to open the hospital in full regalia by the provincial Grand Master, who was Lord Lee, and hence the title of one of the wards, Lee Ward. As these hospitals go, it was quite a small one. I mean, the usual would be anything between 500 and 1,200 patients, which were complete segregated communities. It was a very, very progressive hospital, and it was small, but I would say it's as highly specialised as any hospital in this country was, and I had a fair bit of experience with various hospitals. I started working there in 1960. Some patients were admitted under the old Mental Deficiency Acts, so-called moral defectives, a multitude of sins, little, silly, petty crimes now, but they would have been certified under the MDA, subject to a 5-year review. And every 5 years, if the medical superintendent thought they needed another 5 years, and more often than not they did, they got another 5 years, and they were there indefinitely once they had been certified. Women only had to have an illegitimate child, and that was sufficient grounds to say, "You are mentally defective." We had dozens. That was a very common road. At Middlefield, they had their own personalised clothing. This wasn't always the case in the larger hospitals. They were all well fed and well kept, but they had a centralised laundry, and there was no guarantee each time a patient was going to get their own particular clothing. But up here, at Middlefield, they did. It was the first hospital that I had any contact with where they were permitted to use their own money. In other hospitals, they were either given tokens or cigarettes each week. So many cigarettes were sent up. So many sweets and goodies were put out once a week. It was thoroughly institutionalised. But here at Middlefield, they had their own payday, and they were paid according to their effort and ability. The larger the contribution, coupled with other factors of course, that they made to their own community, so they were rewarded. We had these contracts, one with the GPO especially, breaking down the old telephones and splitting them up, and they went back and were reused for something or other, which we never knew, but that was a very good contract. I think the complete segregation of the sexes was possibly one of the most unimaginative methods in the so-called larger pre-war hospitals. It was absolutely taboo to have any contact or communication. It was absolutely out. Somebody should have done that before, permitted closer integration. There was one weekly dance, and in every hospital this applied, but that was usually at 6 o'clock, finishing about 7:30, and a strict routine of bedtime at 8 o'clock, then up at 7 in the morning. It was ran on very, very strict principles. But here again, Middlefield was years, light years almost, ahead of other large hospitals. There was very little restriction of any kind. Discipline was the smallest possible D. There was no discipline in the place at all. Unit 2. That was a grim place before it was changed. It was almost akin to Hogarth's drawing of Bedlam. They sat on the floor, and in fact, one patient did get a broken femur there, through another one walking over him. Unit 2's patients were what we referred to loosely as higher grade patients. They had more or less complete liberty up there, coming and going within reason. In the villa were the patients who did do a daily job of work, and they worked a basic week, most of them. They go out to daily work, walking around the hospital themselves, minimum supervision. I think the credit largely has to go to Dr. Stanley for his forward, progressive ideas. Any suggestion put to him, if it held merit, it usually was acted upon.